to Granny's place. Take the time and space to give yourself a break. Here you'll find some love, music, laughter, and above. Oh, she'll dare to tell the truth. And so come to Granny's place and give your spirit a big boost.
Welcome to Granny's Place, a haven for love, entertainment, and uncommon sense. I'm Sweet Baby James, here to introduce you to Granny Rocks. And tonight's theme, adapt or get grumpy. What a choice. Let's ask Granny, what do you mean by that, Granny?
Hello there. Welcome everybody to Granny's Place. Well, I just want to start with, adapt. Sometimes it feels like the death knell, right? Oh my God. We're going to our graves because we have to adapt.
Can't we just stay the same?
Can't we? Can't we? Anyway, I'm just going to have some fun today. I have a little bit more use of my left arm, for those of you who care. It's broken, but it's been over 6 weeks, so I'm tootling around a lot more. I had to adapt. What can I say? I had to, okay, so, you know, a lot of people think of adapt or die, right?
The Darwinian principle.
The Darwinian principle. Species are going to die off if they don't adapt, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and it's kind of true. You know, if let's say you're a fish as a personality. I'm a fish. And then suddenly you find yourself on dry land. Well, you had better develop some lungs pretty darn fast or you was going to be dead. So we know about adopt or die, don't we? But I want to comment about the adapt or get grumpy thing, and then I want to talk about what adapting really means. And then in the end, I'm going to offer another option. Because who wants to adapt? I mean, do you want to adapt? I don't want to adapt. I want things my way. I don't want to adapt. Anyway, back to the question of what is wrong with adapting? I mean, why don't we like to adapt? You know, well, first of all, a lot of times we have to adapt to something that's getting worse. You know, I don't mind adapting to a higher income. I don't mind adapting to better health, to better looks, to being treated better. I can handle that. I don't even think about that as adapting, really, although it is, of course. But so often our association, our first association, right, unless you're very smart, is that adaptation has to do with things getting worse. Like, I'm getting hard of hearing. What? What? I'm not getting hard of hearing. What did you say? What did you say?
And you know, speak louder.
Speak louder. And one of the reasons that it's so hard to adapt to that is A, it's embarrassing, right? I mean, who wants to be, you know, deaf? And sometimes it's not fixable, but sometimes it's just, oh my God, it's a sign of age, although that's kind of ridiculous because there are younger people who also have trouble hearing, but for many of us, the association is old age, and now you know, I mean, it's like, I don't want to be old, and people are going to think I'm old, and they're not going to flirt with me anymore, or whatever it is. Or then I have to wear ugly hearing aids, which are not even that ugly anymore. Oh my God, you should have seen the hearing aids in the dark ages when we were young. Oh my God, my poor grandma had a hearing aid. She had this battery that whistled all the time. It was gigantic anyway, and she couldn't hear anyway, poor thing. But anyway, there it is. We may not like the loss. You know, we assume so often, and I'm not saying adaptation is always, you know, going downhill, but I'm just saying that our first thought, right, adapt or get grumpy is usually, oh yeah, because it's something, no, I'm not going to like it. So sometimes it's like old age, which we don't want to have happen, or it's something else that we dislike, like our incomes tank. I have to adapt. I I can't go to the beauty salon. I can't go play golf. I may not even be able to eat organic food. Oh my God. And that's terrible. And that's going to kill me and my children and all that. I have to start growing it, but I don't have a plot of land because I have to adapt to the fact that I've lost my job and I don't own a home anymore, and I'm sitting in an apartment someplace and I don't have a garden. So, you know, it's all bad, 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 right? And it's like, who wants to adapt to that? So we don't like to adapt when it's something that feels like a loss that is threatening our survival or our well-being or our happiness or our joy or something else. Okay, another thing we have to adapt to. Aging. I was talking about being hard of hearing. Hard of hearing is not necessarily related to aging, but aging is related to aging. So now, there we go. Aging, we all do it, even though some people are trying to pretend that they're not aging, or they try to look like they're not aging, or they're still pumping iron. So it's something that people don't, when they're asked what they want to be when they grow up, I don't think anybody has ever said, I want to be old. I want to be crippled. I want to be diseased. I want to be infirm. I want to be demented. Yes, that is my goal in life, is all these good things, right? It's not something that, you know, people talk about as desirable. So how am I even going to think possibly that growing old, although many of us who are aging have discovered that it's really not so bad. Not physically maybe, and maybe not even so mentally, but emotionally. A lot of us, as we start getting older, we've learned something in life, and we're happier, or we're just less stressed because they're not working anymore, if you're not working anymore. See? But anyway, so you can have something that nobody values that's happening to you, and you don't want to adapt to it because I don't want it to be true. I don't want it to be true. I don't want it to be true. So if I adapt, that's acknowledging that it's true. If I am wearing a hearing aid, my God, that means I'm hard of hearing. Terrible.
Remember Jack Benny? He always claimed that he never aged after 39. He was always 39.
Always 39. So often we're adapting to things that we don't think are glamorous, or that are painful, that are actually threatening, or all of that kind of stuff. And so if we die, then we're not grumpy, right? Because if we don't adapt and we die, it's over. There's nobody to be grumpy.
There's going to be grumpiness along the way, though.
Oh, there's going to be grumpiness along the way. But what I'm saying is, so I'm not saying adapt or die, because, you know, if you're dead, you don't have to worry about it anymore, but you can be grumpy. Oh, yes.
Oh, complain a lot.
My God, we have a Republican in the White House, and a certain kind of Republican in the White House, whatever kind of Republican he is. And it's hard to adapt, because that means I feel defeated. So that's another thing. Oh my God, I don't want to adapt, because then it means it's okay, or I'm making it look like it's okay, or I just feel defeated and I just can't take that. Or a Democrat goes in a progressive, I can't adapt. I can't adapt. Free love everywhere. There's going to be people having sex in the churches. The world is going to come to an end. The poor are going to take over. Nobody's going to work anymore. Everything's going to be stolen from me. You know what I mean? Oh my God. I can't adapt to that. Christianity will be dead. It's hard to adapt when you have that kind of perspective, don't you think? And it's much easier to be grumpy, right? No. And since you can't help it, you can't change reality, you just get to grump a lot. Oh, my aching back. Now, I do have an aching back, and I know that an aching back is a pain in the back, right? But I have to adapt. Now, I'm going to talk in a minute about what adapting really looks like. Have I covered enough about why we don't like adapting. It can
Yeah.
feel like a defeat. It's often something that we are losing that
It's
we
like a
think was
loss.
good. Loss.
Might be a
It's
loss of a
painful.
relationship, too.
It's a threat to our
Family, your parents die. Yeah.
the whole thing. So, and you can't adapt if you're in denial. It's like, no, I'm not deaf. Deaf, speak up. I'm not having a problem. You just didn't tell me that you were going shopping this afternoon and you disappeared for 5 hours. It's not that I forgot. No, certainly not. You just didn't tell me. Right? So then I can get grumpy at you for not having told me what you actually told me, but I forgot because I don't want to admit that I forgot, because that would mean there was something wrong with me and I can't possibly, so I can't adapt, because then I would have to admit that it is true. And one more thing about why it's hard to even acknowledge there's something to adapt to. Sometimes it's so gradual. It's like, I look down at my hands and I say, whose hands are they? They don't look like the ones I had 20 years ago, right? But they look very similar to the ones I had yesterday. So, right? So yesterday I looked a lot like I do today. So, how did it happen that somehow or other I don't look the way I did 20 years ago? Of course, I'm much more stunning than I was 20 years ago. That's so obvious. So, a lot of times, change is so gradual. And of course, we should be adapting all along, right? So you would think that would make it easier, but then I remember my mother saying, she would look in the mirror. My mother died at almost 103. She looked in the mirror and she said, who is that woman? I don't even know who she is. I know what she means. Except you get so demented at a certain age that you really don't know who it is. Anyway. So we've been talking about some of the reasons it's hard to adapt, because we don't even want to admit there's anything to adapt to. Now, what could adaptation look like? Well, some things that, people might think are adaptation, maybe they really aren't. For instance, cosmetic surgery to make us look young. That's an adaptation, isn't it? I mean, I admit it. I looked in the mirror. I have a few wrinkles, right? A few dozen, a few thousand. I gotta get rid of them. I'm not adapting to the wrinkles. I'm making my face adapt to the image that I have of what I think I used to look like, or maybe I did look like it. I never did look like it. I don't know, whichever it was. But see, a lot of us think that's an adaptation. And in a way it is. I mean, it's your version of adaptation. So you keep slicing your face up, I don't know, until you have no face left to slice. And that's it. That's your adaptation. So, some people could argue, but what's the point of arguing on this show? We're here to think, not argue. People could argue that that is adaptation. Or, of course, another way to adapt to it is to say, wrinkles. Oh, I always wanted wrinkles. Oh, my God, and now I get to have them. I look so distinguished. I look so heavenly. Because I look like a sage. I love my wrinkles. Well, why not? Why couldn't we love our wrinkles? But no, because it's not in the popular consciousness to love our wrinkles, right? Same thing. I could be fat. I could be skinny. I could be something, right? Can I adapt to that? No, I go shopping for clothes, and you're saying, okay, here's another thing. Here's a way of adapting to being fat. I'm going to wear a muumuu that is like gigantic, and nobody will notice that underneath that muumuu, I am 300 pounds, right? That's an adaptation. Now, I am not denying the pain that people suffer from being fat in our society. Sometimes people have real physical problems that have caused it. Sometimes they have physical problems that are caused by it. And a lot of people have emotional pain that is caused by it. And how do you adapt to that, you know? You tell yourself, I'm okay as I am, and then you wear your muumuu. Or you say, I'm rebelling against that, and I'm going to wear, you know, really revealing clothes, and I'm going to find something about me that's beautiful, my nipples, my elbows, something I'm going to show that I think that I'm beautiful. And we're struggling, you know, to find a way to adapt to a reality that makes us feel pain inside about ourselves. And it's hard to change the societal view that makes it so incredibly painful, right? I'll only wear black. Nobody will notice. My mother used to say this all the time. You should wear black. It's very slimming. So, you know, adaptation can look like, okay, I really have cognitive impairment and I really should be living in a place where I can't hurt myself. Now, that kind of makes sense, doesn't it? You know, it's like, oh, this is a reality, but maybe there are other options that I haven't even thought of. But you see, it's so hard to adapt in unusual and creative ways when most of us are not creative about the way we live. We make certain assumptions about what life is and what's out there, and we just go with it until somebody else creates something, you know? Mm-hmm. Like a plus-size model. You know, it's like, wow. Suddenly, there's a new paradigm. And like, wow, maybe I don't even have to adapt. Right? Mm-hmm. You know? Maybe siloing people with dementia among people who have dementia is not the best way. But see, that's the fear. Is like we have an idea of what the adaptation has been up to this point, and then we think, I don't want that. So don't you think that all makes us very grumpy? And then it also makes us grumpy just to think that maybe we're losing our marbles and we're going to be powerless and everybody's going to make fun of us or we're going to burn the house down. I mean, that's all very painful, isn't it? So who wants to adapt to that? So adapt to get grumpy. I'm getting exhausted. I think I'll get grumpy about this. Now, is there another way to look at this? Okay. Wouldn't you be surprised if I said there wasn't another way? You say, what, Granny? You have led us to this point, and now you're going to tell us there is no other way to look at it? Well, I think there is, so let me get to this. Okay. Supposing you were born deaf. You wouldn't be adapting to being deaf any more than I am adapting to hearing.
Right.
We're all adapting. But because I hear from the beginning of my life, or because my skin used to look a lot different, or I notice a change, and I think I am adapting to the change. But guess what? I've always been adapting. There is no such thing as not adapting, right? You're looking at me like, what?
Well, one can be set in their ways, right?
No, I'm not talking about that. That is a good point. But what I'm talking about is if you hear, you are adapting to living in a world of hearing.
Oh, okay.
If you are deaf, you are adapting to living without hearing. Okay. If you are blind, you are adapting to not seeing. If you are seeing, you're adapting to seeing. You see, we have an idea in our head that whatever we've been doing or what everybody around us has been doing is the way it's been is just natural, normal, and okay. And then if something changes, we have to adapt. But what I'm saying is we're always adapting. So let's say you were born in a family with 6 children. You're adapting immediately to being in a little collective. Sometimes a very happy family, sometimes a really stinkeroony family where the kids are killing each other. You know what I'm saying? Or where the parents are killing the kids or whatever. But that's whatever it is that you grow up with is family to you. That's what it means, right? But if I were an only child, then I've already adapted to being an only child, which means that I expect all the family resources to go to me. And I don't even imagine that I have to share them with anybody. And I mean, it's an affront if I ever have to. Even that I have to give anything, let my parents have anything is kind of appalling. So now, if I then join a commune where everything is like, oh my God, I'm going to have to adapt to that. But if I grew up in a commune, I'm not adapting to being in a commune. I have to adapt to the nuclear family, or I have to adapt to being alone. So what I am saying is now, think about this. I mean, this is a very serious point that I'm making. There is no such thing as not adapting. If you use the word adapt, just getting out of the womb, I have to adapt to breathing through my lungs, right? It's like life. Or even when you're in the womb, you keep changing, right? There is no such thing as not adapting. There is no absolute way of being, you see, that everything is measured against. Everything is an adaptation to the situation you're in. If you are an Australian Aborigine, I was reading many years ago about the lives of people who had very little water, and my God, they live with very little water, and somehow they survive. I can't live without my jacuzzi. I do live without a jacuzzi, but you know what I mean? My shower and my river. I mean, you know, how do you live without these things? I can't even imagine. I don't know what they do when suddenly they come here to think, my God, it never stops raining. True, it never stops raining. If you grew up in a place where it never rained, you wouldn't be adapting. You would be adapting if it started to rain. You move to a new place. Oh my God, what's wrong with this place? It rains all the time. Talking to a woman just the other day. Remember, she came from Pennsylvania, Philadelphia, something. Philadelphia. And she says, we live in Central Oregon. She says, it's always raining here. It's cloudy all the time. There, all we get is snow. You know, it's like, oh my God, see? Well, the point that I'm really trying to make, I hope you're getting it, is that what we live with is what seems normal, and everything else seems like an adaptation. Oh my God, there are foreigners moving into the neighborhood. They're Mexican, or they're Muslim, you know, or they're Norwegian, or they're Jewish, or they're rednecks, or they're something other than whatever I am, whatever I grew up with, and I have to adapt. What the hell are they doing throwing their garbage over the fence into my yard? It must be because they are whatever it is that they are, right? So something changes. You know, you live in a filthy home, you grow up in a filthy home, and, you know, you may change your mind later and, you know, decide I don't like that. But, you know, it could be pretty weird if you find yourself with a compulsive cleaner. It's like, oh my God, how do I adapt to that? See, and not only do we have to adapt to changes in ourselves and changes in our neighborhood and changes in our nation, and there are so many non-whites who are getting born, and I mean, and we're not going to be America anymore, and I don't want to have to adapt. But you've been adapting to living in a Protestant neighborhood or a Catholic neighborhood or a whatever neighborhood you lived in, right? All the time. You've always been adapting, but no, this is the norm. See, so the first step to not being grumpy is to realize that we have already adapted to what has been our environment, and that we're kind of blind to that, and that it's time for us to realize that. Okay, now I'm going to say something more radical. How do you stop adapting? How do you stop having to adapt? By Now, this is going to sound impossible. But you know, I am the queen, the grandma of impossibility, right? No, just improbable, but never impossible. I don't have to adapt. I have to respond to what is. That's not adapting. So now I'm not feeling like, oh, something has changed outside my control, and I'm really upset about it, and I feel all tense about it, and am I going to be able to? And I don't want to, and it's like it never could be. It's not happening. I don't want it to be happening. It's like, okay, if I wake up in the morning, and I'm in the body I'm in that morning, so it hurts, or it doesn't hurt, or my brain is clear, or it isn't, or it's raining, or it's not raining, or the neighbors are honking. Oh my God, if I have to adapt to living in a city, I am shooting myself, James. This is the one exception that I'm making. So anyway, right? It's like, supposing I don't think of myself as adapting at all, supposing I think of myself as living and responding in a positive, healthy, productive way to whatever is the shape of life that greets me. And supposing I consider that a positive. Supposing I just say, I get to co-create my day with my universe. In Living with Reality, the book, which is on our website free of charge, in a PDF file, theinnerrevolution.org, I have a bunch of stuff about all this. But we become becoming. You know, instead of having an idea of ourselves that we have to live up to every day that is set, we have a chapter called Becoming Co-Creative. We co-create with the universe in a subtle dance of intention and allowance. And that's every day, every minute of every day. So the universe changes. My response to that universe changes. I intend to make changes or to do something, and I put it out there and I see what happens. And it's a constant becoming. And so I don't have to adapt, and I don't have to get grumpy. I just have to live in the moment and respond in a way that suits me, that is supportive to everyone, that is for the highest good of all, including me, to the best of my ability every day. Now, think about it. Think about something you may be struggling with, or some things you may be struggling with. And ask yourself, if I didn't feel like I had to adapt to something outside my control, supposing I just felt like I was being that day, co-creative with the universe, to try to create something healing, supportive, loving, something great. How do you feel about this, James?
I like it.
You do? I sprung this on you today, didn't I? You had no idea that I was going to come up with this. Well, I didn't know either until about 5 minutes before the show. I said, oh, I know what the answer to this is. Eureka. I had an idea.
Sounds like a really good way to live.
I think it's a fabulous way to live. I think you should read this book, too. Not that I talk about adapt or be grumpy, but the whole thing about living with reality, you know, living with reality, and realize that it's just constant change, right? We walk the path of not knowing, and we become becoming. There is no end point. I don't say that there aren't some realities that are more painful than others, but we can eliminate the pain, which is that the universe is imposing something on me and that my ego doesn't want to adapt, because I begin to understand that this is the nature of life. Join us tonight at Granny's Kitchen. All the instructions are in the post, and you'll be part of the discussion as we talk talk about today's show and the ideas on it, and I'll be leading that, and Sweet Baby James will be there too, and we would love to have you. And please pass on this show to anybody who you think might need a little support in this arena, like everybody.
Everybody.
And see you next week.